somebody found the strength to finally move on and love themselves after being in a relationship that gave them nothing but terrible memories. And you did it with humility, you did it with grace. You truly found the strength within after being stuck for so long to give yourself closure in order to find healing. So you moved on from people, places, things, and situations that you realized you could not change in order to begin to love yourself again, because your life, the stories that you were telling were never happy ones. Always filled with negativity, chaos, drama, heartbreak, disappointment. So you remained humbled and you walked away, you moved on with the last bit of strength that you had left, and you took this situation, this relationship, as the greatest lesson that you've ever had to learn from, and made sure that it didn't make you bitter, but it made you greater. Hi, Collective. Welcome back to Love, Light, and Life Affirmed, your daily affirmations for self-love and growth. Hi, you guys. Welcome back into the channel. This is our romance and love spread. Welcome back, all of my current followers and subscribers. Thank you guys so much for all your love and support. All the incoming and new followers and subscribers, welcome into the channel. So glad you found the Soul Tribe. Collective, somebody had to walk away with so much strength. Neglect wounds, childhood wounds, struggles to let things go. Low self-worth, gets angry easily, struggles to say no, repressed emotions. Yes, like I said, it took every bit of strength that you had because you've been neglected. You've had childhood wounds that you had not had a chance to heal before you ended up in this relationship that made it difficult for you to let this go, no matter how difficult it was, because it was a familiar pain. It was a pain that you were used to that always made you feel like you had to question your self-worth. The people who claimed to love you never made you feel appreciated or truly loved. And you always struggled to say no because these people-pleasing tendencies were embedded within you from such an early age. So many repressed emotions. You became your own self-critic. You placed unrealistic and unreasonable expectations on yourself, exaggerating the negatives, extremely judgmental about who you were as a person because of these childhood wounds. Because, again, the people in your life who should have loved you, who should have nurtured you, constantly judged you, made you feel like you had to be a perfectionist, which is an illusion. You were never going to live up to those standards. But in making you feel this way all your life, you struggled to walk away from relationships that were abusive, that were emotionally abusive, that were not giving to you in an equal give and take way. Clarify, move on. Yeah, you had to move on in order to save your own heart, Collective. You had to move on so that you could learn how to love yourself again unconditionally, so that you can feel complete again. There were so many limitations on your emotions in this relationship, and they were mostly negative emotions. There were no feelings of completeness, fulfillment, joy, love. Your heart was hurting constantly. So you had to move on in order to feel complete again. You became a warrior for self. You awakened the warrior within your heart. You surrendered the ego and the struggle. You reconnected with your heart and the divine, and you returned to love. You again returned to find how to love yourself. You became your own warrior. After the neglect, the self criticism, you decided it was time to heal. It was time to find strength in order to move on from a situation that you knew no longer served you, that you knew constantly was breaking your heart. You found a way to love yourself again. Yes, you surrendered. You let go of the negativity. You listened to the higher wisdom from self. You shifted again out of ego and into your soul self. You surrendered control because you knew that there was nothing that you could do to change the situation. And you put up boundaries. You made self-care a priority. You began to create limits from people, places, and things that were no longer serving you, that kept breaking your heart, that kept disappointing you. You started to tune into healing your feelings, your emotions, practicing self awareness. You started to look within, dive deeper to figure out how you got there. How can I heal my own heart? How can I make my own self feel complete and get out of this clouded thinking with all of these negative memories? You were not you were unable to think clearly, unable to make decisions. You were not able to concentrate because all you had clouded in your brain were the negative memories, situations, the negative words, the criticism, the judgments of the person that should have loved you wholly, fully. But it was a familiar pain, so it was hard to walk away and find the strength for a very long time to surrender, because this was about you finding self-love. And when no one has taught you how to love yourself, you had to go within. You had to become a warrior for self. You had to pray and ask for assistance from your higher self to regain control of your own heart. And you had to stop compromising. You had to stop trying to find a way to compromise with someone who was not compromising with you. You had to stop worrying about their needs and desires and figure out why your needs and desires were not being met. You had to come back to your divine feminine, divine masculine energy. And you needed to have that discussion with self and stop compromising your own heart. So you walked away. You found who you were again in solitude. You found time to reflect, to work on bettering yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit. You took back control because you started to realize that you were worth the effort. You were worth the time, the energy, all the love you were trying to pour into someone who was constantly neglecting you, who did not see you or appreciate you, who was not concerned about your feelings or emotions. You had to take your power back. You had to go within, give that love and energy back to you. You had to find time in the stillness, in solitude, to go within, to find clarity, so that you could stop breaking your own heart. Because heartbreak seemed normal to you. Heartbreak seemed to be what defined relationships in your life. It seemed to be what relationships were from a very young age, unfortunately. But you knew, you started to realize you didn't deserve that. So you had to learn how to forgive yourself. You had to forgive yourself first, collective. And if you are having a hard time forgiving self, understand that we only know what we know when we know it. And when we are in a lack mentality, when we don't realize that we deserve abundance in love and life and finance, we deserve it all. It is hard to find a reason to want to heal the self, the heart, especially when you don't see that you deserve it, that you don't feel that you deserve it, because maybe there's been such a lack of emotional connection with self for so long that neglect was the normal. Emotional abuse is the normal. Anything else felt awkward, anything else felt fake, anything pertaining to actual love you couldn't connect to because it seemed unreal, non existent. So you had to find your divine masculine and your divine feminine energy. You had to go within and figure out what your triggers were. You had to figure out why you were okay with emotional abuse, why you were okay with broken relationships. Why did it make you angry when people wanted to show you love, but you would jump through hoops for people who neglected you, who criticized you, who judged you, who made you feel like you were never good enough, who didn't have patience for you? So many suppressed emotions you've carried for a very long time. And this is your survival tactic. In order to deal with the constant emotional abuse, the constant judgment, you suppressed your true emotions, and it became easy over time. But eventually, you had moments where your emotions would explode because they could no longer be suppressed anymore, because they had to find a scapegoat. You had to find a way to let them out, and you ended up losing great people in your life, friends, other relationships, work colleagues. Because when that emotional explosion happened, there was definitely collateral damage, and some that could not be recovered from. And again, because you have been surrounded for so long by karmic family and friends, relationships with people who kept you in this lack mentality, you realize that it was time to break this pattern, because it was constantly affecting every relationship that you've ever had, romantic or otherwise. You had to find the willpower. You had to start to pray and ask for assistance from your higher self, from your spirit guides, from God. You had to find self-control, self-motivation, self-love, self-love, which was never taught to you. It was never made to seem important in your daily life growing up. But this kept all of your relationships at a stalemate. the lack of self-love, self-care, because again, emotional connection did not seem natural to you. It was not something that was poured into you as it should have from a young age. This lack of knowledge, this lack of connection kept you in constant relationship that lacked true love and support, that were based on transactions. If I do this for you, then you do this for me. Tit for tat, control, manipulation, but not love. Not love. So you had to shut down the chaos. You had to take back control and get rid of the turmoil, the disorder. So you had to detach from this person, place, or situation that no longer served you, that kept you stuck and stagnant. You had to pull up a barrier, boundaries, physically, emotionally, and energetically, because there was no reason to be optimistic that this situation would get any better. You couldn't do it anymore. You couldn't stand the constant pain and neglect and judgment, the negative emotions, the negative memories that seemed to keep piling up and getting higher. The book that you were writing about your life, your romantic life, your family life, your friend life, was filled with negative memories. So you found your spirituality. You started to feel more connected after you separated and detached, after you put up those boundaries. You started to reconnect with a higher power, the universe. You started to ask for help. You found the willpower to stay away from something that felt so normal to you, so natural. And you started to gain the knowledge that you needed to understand the patterns, the negative projections, the fact that there was true lack within your relationships. There had never been true fulfillment within your relationships. You were tired of feeling overwhelmed, always worried, constant burdens placed on your shoulders, constantly taken for granted, never an equal give and take. Your value was defined based on what you could provide, not who you were, not how much you loved, because what was love? There were no feelings of nostalgia. Again, memories in the reverse. There were never any good memories here within these connections. You had trust issues that you had to overcome. Trust, again, was now something that you had to learn how to give to others. But with so many childhood wounds, it was going to take true healing, because you didn't even trust yourself to choose well within relationships, to choose the right partners, to choose the right friendships. So when genuine people who you could actually trust would come across your life or into your life, you would find ways to not trust them. You would test the relationships between them and create chaos in order to self-sabotage, to feel right, to feel validated for not trusting because you were insecure. So you had to confess to yourself, fess up, be honest with self, take accountability for the relationships that you have found yourself in all of these years. You had to begin to be honest with self, because in order to love self, you have to take off the mask and really look at who you are underneath. And this was going to be no easy thing. But again, you found the strength and the courage to move on, to put yourself in separation, to detach from these broken relationships that always gave you bad memories. And you walked away with grace, not angry, because you deep down truly wanted to be better. You were tired of keeping up appearances, faking that the relationships that you were in were amazing. You got tired of the deception, the lies, the constantly having to cover up who you truly were. It became exhausting. And you stepped into your divine feminine, divine masculine energy. You were ready to reconnect with self, find a true place called home, first within self and maybe with another. Because you were tired of grieving. So now you are at a crossroads and you made that decision. You were guided. You walked away from karmic partners, karmic friends, and family, and you finally began to choose you, collective, which is exactly what you needed. So when I say you found the strength to move on, love yourself because you were tired, but you did it with grace. You've given yourself a second chance to truly find love. And now you can choose, constantly choose the right path moving forward, collective. It took a lot for you to walk away from a place you have been stuck for a very long time. So moving forward, don't look back. Keep looking forward. Keep choosing the right path. You are definitely on your way to healing your heart, to feeling whole and complete, and to truly finding the love that you truly deserve. First, love for self. And then, you know, love with another. And you deserve that. So don't give up. All right, collective. That's what I have for you. Pray that the message gave you some food for thought. If it resonated, I'd love to know about it. Or you just liked the message, please hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me. But until next time, you guys, bye.